welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I'm your host, Jessica. I am here with the author of a book called The Sun and the Moon, which is lovely. I can't say enough about how lovely this book is. Absolutely beautiful, just so much heart. I loved the characters. It was just gorgeous. So
Thank
first,
you.
You're welcome. How about you tell everyone who you are and about this book?
Okay. I'm Rebekah Faubion. I'm the author of The Sun and the Moon. It is my sort of ode to all the people who grew up with sort of feeling like they were in somebody else's shadow and trying to find their own way to shine in their lives and the story of their life. So both Cadence and Sydney, who are our main characters, are coming into the story with some baggage. Cadence is a park ranger in Maine, and she loves the outdoors. She's definitely that's her passion. But in a lot of ways, she sort of sought this job out to get as far away as she could from her narcissistic mother, who is a psychic in Los Angeles. And Sydney is a pilot who is very much the opposite of Cadence. She's very close with her dad, who formerly was a pilot. And so she's on this sort of trajectory to be the best pilot, young female pilot, doing the most, and sort of struggles with commitment and relationships and all of that stuff. And when Sydney and Cadence meet, it's because Cadence's mother, Moira, who is the psychic, who she is estranged from, and Sydney's father, Rick, are engaged to be married, and it's a whirlwind engagement. So they immediately, both Cadence and Sydney, are sus of this relationship, and it forces Cadence to come home to Los Angeles, where she hasn't been in many years, in 4 years, to try to figure out what's going on. And that is how she meets Sydney, who, in the meeting of Sydney, kind of confirms or creates this scenario that is a soulmate prediction her mother gave her when she was a teenager. And that is the worst thing that could ever happen. So the two of them team up to try to break up their parents' engagement because they don't trust it. And in the process, they fight feelings for one another. And it's a romance, so they fight them not that hard.
Yes, and it's like I said, it's beautiful, and it's so funny because a few things kind of struck me when you were talking. Number one, when it comes to Cadence, her mother is such a tough person in her life, and then it's how dare she be right about this wonderful thing, right?
Exactly. It's so funny because I feel like if you have any kind of we have complicated relationships with parents or whoever in our life that has a lot of sway and say in our life, it's you don't want them to be right about anything. And so the fact that she is right, essentially, that this woman comes into her life in this way, and Cadence is immediately oh, I'm very wait, I like her and I can't like her. I can't let my mom be right.
And they have this almost reverse parent trap thing happening, where
Yes.
they don't they don't want to be sisters, obviously.
No, they're we don't want you guys to get married.
And they don't want to get their parents to get married. But
yeah.
It's just, it really is it's almost it notes of Shakespearean comedy romance going on there.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
I don't know if that's what you intended, but it felt very much like that.
I mean, I think Shakespearean comedy is probably the root of all romantic comedies come from Shakespearean comedy, right? So I grew up, reading Shakespeare and watching the thing that comes to mind is Much Ado About Nothing, which I think is fully a romantic comedy in the best possible sense of the word. because it's got shenanigans and hijinks, and it has like kind of also the like interplay of their families and the drama of the relationships, the interpersonal dynamics. And it is full, like, I am a fan of just people acting kind of outside of their comfort zone, and like you're not expecting them to act. And I think it's always fun to watch characters do things that you don't think they'll do.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think one of the things that I really loved about this book was just how organic everything felt. You knew that there were going to be certain tropes. You
Mhm.
play with them. You seem to have like, almost like in a tongue-in-cheek sort of way.
Yeah.
But you're really rooting for these two. I mean, I was really
Yeah.
excited when they started interacting.
Yeah, I mean, I am very like I we all know the tropes. I think even if you're not a romance reader, you're probably familiar with some tropes like friends to lovers, or the and so in I mean, one of the tropes that I play with in this book, very in a very, I think, tongue-in-cheek way, is the only one bed trope. I have such a good time with that. It was so funny because I would say I typically, as a writer, don't write to tropes. Like, I kind of do whatever I want to do, and sometimes that ends up meaning that there's a trope, and sometimes that ends up meaning I don't have a lot of those. But that specifically, I was like, I want to do the only one bed trope, because they're staying in they so part of the plot of the story is that they go to this engagement party. They're doing like an engagement weekend, and they're still, of course, scheming to try to break them up. And it's in Solvang, which is this cute Danish town in California that I love. And that means, of course, they're going to be staying at a hotel. And because Cadence was not originally planning to come, she doesn't have her own room. And what's amazing is that Moira has booked a room for Sydney, and she's like, "Oh, well, you two can stay together." And so it's this thing of like, does Moira know that like they're into each other? And you never really like, I play with it because I want you to be like, what's her deal? And then now they're like, we're gonna have to sleep in the same bed, and we totally like are starting to like each other.
So where did these characters kind of all come from for you?
Yeah, so I can start with Moira. I think it's important to start there. The Sun and the Moon is not it's a standalone sequel to my debut romance novel, which was called The Lovers. And in The Lovers, you're introduced to a character named Madame Moira in past tense, like in flashbacks. Madame Moira was is a psychic, like a neighborhood psychic, and she gives this soulmate prediction to Kit and Julia, who are the main characters in The Lovers. And so when I was writing The Lovers, I was like so intrigued by Madame Moira. I was like, who is this woman who would like have the nerve? Because when she gives the soulmate prediction to them, they're 12 years old. Like who is this woman who's like, let me. And so I was really interested in her. And when it came to like, working on ideas for the next book, I just kept coming back to like, what would it be like to grow up with a mother who is psychic and kind of constantly trying to predict stuff about you, and has like a very clear idea of who you are, and is like also kind of like the center of her own universe in a lot of ways. And that's where Cadence came from. I was so like, I had such a heart for this girl who would have grown up in that space, and especially what would that do if you were like, I don't really like fate stuff and tarot and psychics, and I don't want anybody to tell me what my life is going to look like. And that's very much Cadence. So she was born from like this question of what would it be like to deal with that. And then Sydney came along, and like I just immediately knew I wanted her to be this strong, very like in a man sort of dominated, both of them are in male dominated industries, park ranger and pilot. And so but Sydney has like this, is the opposite of Cadence in that she is very confident. She's very outgoing. She really expresses herself with a lot of grace, but is actually deeply inside not sure if she who she is. And so they sort of, and then of course I had to create Rick, who is the man that Moira is engaged to. And I just wanted him to be, I call him like a Phil Dunphy type. I just wanted him to be so likable and affable that you're like, you feel like, and you're like, why are you with her? He's like, what's going on? And I wanted to keep people guessing about what was really going on in this story as it unfolds.
And you did. And again, I really just don't want to spoil some of the stuff because it is a
Yeah.
lot of, it is like so much fun, like so much fun. But I do really enjoy the story telling, just the way that you sort of bring the characters together and the
Mm-hmm.
way that the focal points switch. Sometimes a lot of times actually, you read something that's in different perspectives and it could either work
Mm-hmm.
really well or not. This was almost seamless, and
Yeah,
the
thank you.
characters were just so well put together. I love that Sydney is a female pilot.
Yeah, yes. I mean, it's so interesting. In my research for both of the characters and their jobs and their backgrounds and sort of, I really wanted to, uh, I've learned a lot about female pilots and how competitive it is and how difficult it is to be a female pilot. And what was fascinating to me, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this, there's a show on HBO called The Rehearsal. It's a comedian. His and I'm gonna blank on his last name, but his first name is Nathan. And it is an excellent show. But in that, he actually goes into the second season of the show is all about pilots and like the mental health strain that pilots are dealing with. And I found it really confirming because Sydney really is dealing with a lot of those things. Like there's a lot of pressure on a pilot to be perfect. Your mental health, you can't really talk about your mental health. And Sydney doesn't really talk about her mental health and she doesn't really examine her feelings. And I feel like it's like she really comes across as what I hope anybody who's a pilot or who knows a pilot will understand is like this is a challenging field to work in for anybody, but it's especially challenging for women. And I wanted to give readers something different for the jobs, that these characters have.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it really, again, everything about this book is like a breath of fresh air. I felt like I was on vacation while I was reading it. I
Yeah.
felt like I was a guest at this engagement party,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed every single person in the book. And it had some really nice scenes, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a very it was like the spicy scenes came at the perfect
Yeah.
time. It really was like you felt the longing,
Hmm.
before it all happened. And that's not to say I have any issue at all. People have their likes. I have a coworker, I've said this a few times, who's like,
Hmm.
30 pages in, if there's no sex, I don't want to read it. And like for me, I'm just like, that's cool, I'm like, but I really want to like care about these
Yeah.
characters. I'd like to
Yeah. You're
know,
like,
I'd like
I
to,
very much,
yeah,
yeah, agree with you.
I want to
It's
like
like you do
be
you, but
emotionally, I want to be emotionally invested in them before the
sure.
gets turned up. Like I want to feel that longing.
Yeah.
And I felt it. It was so sweet.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I am a very big advocate for yearning and like I think that like you're saying like it's so rewarding to want them to kiss, want them to come together, see how they're going to fit together before they see how they're going to fit together and then as it starts to materialize, there's like this like anticipation. I'm a big fan of like and so for me, I think spicy scenes are such a great tool to express emotional growth and depth and character. And like that's why I like when I write them, that's the way I utilize them. I think that that's, that's what is my preference for spicy scenes. And so for me, I love a spicy scene. I want it to feel like a payoff.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, this is not me knocking anybody else's
Of
preference.
course,
This
no.
is just, this is just sort of like my take when when I'm reading something and I'm sitting down with these characters and I'm going to be going
Yeah,
through a scene where, I want to be like, oh man, good for you. Yes, there you go.
you're getting it.
You guys have like been like really like longing for this and
Hmm.
good for you. So
Yeah,
it really,
the good
yeah,
for you.
good for
You
you.
got it.
Yes. Yeah, no, it really just, what a wonderful book. It's funny. Like I said, the characters are endearing. The language is beautiful. If anything in this interview interests you at all, please run out and read this book, buy it,
Thank
borrow
you.
it from your library, give it to somebody. Such a great book.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I'm so grateful to librarians for stocking the book and like getting it. That means so much to me. So yes, please. It's got all the steam. It's got like, oh, one other note that I will say is a selling point, I think, is that there's an old man, a little old chihuahua in the book named Chicken. And
Chicken! I
I'm
didn't even talk about chicken.
I was like, we got to talk about chicken. But he's so precious, and I just like I wanted to feature a little dog who he's an old dog. He's not in his, but he's still kicking and happy and living his best life. And so I think Chicken is a great an addition to this story, and it was a lot of fun to write him. So any of that stuff sounds good to you, definitely pick it up.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, what are you working on next?
Yeah, so I am actually doing a bit of a pivot in my career at this moment. I have a young adult novel called Lost Girls of Hollow Lake that comes out in January. And it is I pitched it as Yellow Jackets meets I Know What You Did Last Summer. So it is a survival story about 8 girls who go missing on a school trip to this mysterious national park, and they are lost for 46 days. And when they come home, they are traumatized. And then, not long after arriving back home, they receive a message that somebody is going to hunt them down for what happened while they were gone. So it's very edgy, very, very different from my romance novels. And then my next adult release is also going to be a horror with Berkeley. It is called What a Nightmare, and it is about a woman who can dream things into reality. And after accidentally almost killing her boss, she decides to go home to her estranged family to try to fix her trauma because she knows that this is something she shouldn't be doing and she's scared that it's going to get worse. And so she's seeking redemption and she ends up going for revenge instead. So that's what I have coming next.
Very exciting. Well, thanks again. I can't wait to see more from you. Would you ever
Thank you.
return to this universe, this world?
I will never close a door on anything, frankly. I'm traditionally published, so you kind of have to follow where you're sort of able to get your book deals. And so of course, I loved writing this world. So yeah, I would say nothing is ever off the table for me. So
I guess another question, actually, and this was kind of something I'd meant to ask before, just to sort of circle back around, is
mhm.
tarot cards, the tarot theme.
Yeah,
How do you like where do you fall in the tarot psychic
yeah.
world?
I definitely do tarot. So I got into tarot about 3 to 4 years ago. I come from a Christian background, and part of my sort of like leaving and deconstructing from that was getting into tarot. It was something that I was like, it was taboo to do, and so then I was like, I'm gonna try it. And I love it. So I use tarot much more intuitively for myself, just to like sort of in touch with my emotions and sort of what's going on with me. I have visited a psychic before, and I would say that I've been described as fairly psychic myself, only not through tarot, just through like vibes. And like specifically ghosts. I can sometimes like see like do like ghost little haunted things in like houses and stuff. But so I definitely am a believer. I would say I'm a believer in the skeptic believer scale. Like I've fallen the believer side of things. So I am very grounded. So I am always like having, like I'm a questioner. I like to question. So
Thank you so much. Can't wait to see more from you. Once again, this
thank
was
you.
You're welcome. Once again, this was Jessica with Turn the Page podcast. My guest was
Rebekah Faubion.
And
I'm the author of The Sun and the Moon.
Yes,
from Berkeley.
Wonderful book. And we are going to close
Thank
this
you.
chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.